an unbelievable opportunity for students. The idea that we can take a kid who's grown up in a place like Hell's Kitchen, New York, like I did, who grew up in, not the Hell's Kitchen today, any New Yorkers? You know? Not the Hell's Kitchen with the nice Mediterranean place, but the one from the 70s and 80s. Remember the 80s? Yeah. I didn't like that environment. My mother came from Argentina, you know, showed up. I was born in New York, raised in New York. She sent me to PSO 11, and they said, "Welcome to PSO 11," and I said, "¿Qué?" So English is my second language. Single mom, no father, welfare, food stamps, growing up in Hell's Kitchen, not the nicest situation, not the nicest place. And I said to myself, I did not want to be part of that. I didn't want to be part of that environment, so I had two options. Number one was I was going to play in the NBA, and that didn't work out. So the other thing was education. I thought that education was my way out. And through the impossibility of the odds of graduating from high school, going to college, getting a master's degree, I stand here in front of you with that opportunity because of education. And that's why we do what we do, right? So that's the passion and the power of education. But more importantly, it is about what it does for the next generation, right? It's not even the kids that we're dealing with today. It's not even the kids that we have in our classes today. It is what we're doing with kids, their kids, right? So I have two kids. So this is a perfect example of what's possible, right? So I have two kids. I have a 21-year-old and a 13-year-old. And my 21-year-old never asked me if she had to go to college. I never told her she had to go to college. She just assumed that she was going to college. In one generation, she just assumed she was going to college because I went to college and because everyone around her went to college. And she assumes that she's going to graduate school because I went to graduate school. She assumes I'm paying for that, but that's a good problem to have, right? I still have a whole year to break the news to her. She's here in Atlanta actually doing an internship at CNN in between her junior and senior year. And my 13-year-old, you know, spent half the summer in Buffalo, and last year we went to Peru, and he's taking online classes. Their expectations of what's possible in life are so fundamentally different than they were for me. That's what we're doing, right? It's not about the kids that we're dealing with today, it's about their kids. And that's the power and the potential of what education can do. Now, we know things aren't always all that great, right? If you're a high-performing, low-income student in this country, you have like a 9% chance of graduating from college. Right? Those are some serious odds that we're dealing with. That's where we need to, think about what we can do from a different perspective. But even if everything was great, and I'm one of those people who don't actually think that education is broken. I actually don't think that we need to disrupt education. I don't think that the whole idea of like transformation of education isn't something that I think about. What I think about is the fact that we're living in a new economy. Right? And that in 1973, when I was in school, 30% of the jobs required some kind of post-secondary education. And by the time we get to 2020, more than 70% of those jobs are going to require some kind of post-secondary education. Notice that I didn't say college. I said beyond high school, some kind of skill set, some kind of technical skill set, because the world that we're living in is changing. So what we need to think about is not necessarily how do we disrupt education, but how do we adjust it? How do we iterate? How do we get to the point where we're reflective in our education practices with the world that we're in and the world that's coming? Because I think the most important thing that's happened is that the world's moved really, really fast in a short amount of time. Next. All right, everyone get off the internet. That's a big fail. All right, so I think I know what you can. No, go. Oh, big fail. Okay, so I think I know what the next slide is. The idea here is that what we have is we're living in a different economy, and what we have to do is think about how we're preparing kids for jobs that don't exist yet, right? And it's already happening, right? I'm standing here in front of you with a job that did not exist when I graduated high school. Every once in a while it hits me, right? I make money, I live a living from a job that doesn't exist, right? that didn't exist when I graduated high school. So our job, and it's very easy, is to prepare kids for jobs that don't exist, because they're going to be using technologies and advancements that haven't been discovered to solve problems that we haven't really defined yet. Pretty simple, right? Easy job. Now, if we think about what that means, is how do we do that? How do we prepare kids to do that? Because we're living in this new economy. The most important thing that we have to think about is where were we before and why do we need to move? Now, for most of history, where you were born, the proximity that you had to resources, your family income, the access to books and libraries were all factors that determined your academic success. These are all important things. And the truth is, for most of the world, that's still true, right? That's still an important factor. And this has literally changed in our lifetime. You know, if you could see the slides, there's a picture of the Columbus Library on 51st Street and 10th Avenue. If those of you in New York know this library. And that was my information center. That's where I had to go get resources. That's where all of us, every school, every community member, everyone who lived in Hell's Kitchen had to use the library on 51st Street and 10th Avenue to get our resources. And it closed at 5, wow. And it wasn't open on the weekends, or the books were missing because Vinny stole them, or that was our information center. And that's, for the most of history, what we had. We had these libraries where we had information. And so what schools were developed for was to be able to take, you know, there were what I call information transfer facilities, where we took big people that had a lot of information to give to little people who needed the information, and that's what we did with schools. And this has literally changed in our lifetime, right? This has fundamentally changed in our lifetime, where now the world's information, a gazillion libraries that are at our fingertips. But why haven't we reflected that in how we practice education, right? How is it that we can take that concept of the world being at our fingertips and apply it to the world? I kind of freak out at the idea that no one is losing their mind over this. Like, why is it that we have all the world's information at our fingertips and we're still kind of practicing education in the same way, where my 13-year-old's classroom looks basically the same as my classroom did when I was in 7th grade 100 years ago, right? That's what we need to be able to think about. What do we need to focus on?